the lives lost and families impacted throughout our community, our state, our nation, and the world by the COVID-19 pandemic. And while everyone has been touched by the pandemic, we want to acknowledge the disproportionate impact that has been experienced by our Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities. The health and economic disparities are real, and they are unjust. This is one more reminder of our district values and that our commitment to racial and social justice reform must not waver. And finally, we want to give our eternal thanks and appreciation to the many public health professionals and frontline workers who have given so selflessly and who have heroically served our communities during this pandemic. Please join us in one moment of silence as we reflect upon and honor the people whose lives have been forever impacted and lost due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Tonight, we remember 118 plus million people who have contracted the virus worldwide, 2.6 million people who have died worldwide, 29.7 million people who have contracted the virus in the United States, nearly 540,000 people who have died in the United States, more than 157,000 people who have contracted the virus in Oregon, including more than 21,460 people in Washington County, and the 2,298 Oregonians who have lost their lives, including 218 people in Washington County. We will not forget you. Thank you. So thank you for taking that moment with me. Reflecting on the lives lost it's so impactful. So it's hard to move on from that. Thank you for taking that time with me. Are there any action items resulting from executive session?
Madam President, this is Wendy. I have a motion.
Yes, please.
I move that the Board of Directors authorize staff to acquire property in the southwest quadrant of the district for the price discussed in executive session, using system development charge funds subject to the standard due diligence review and approval by the general manager.
This is Tia. I will second that.
Thank you, Tia. Thank you, Wendy. Jessica, please call roll or take the vote.
Hattie Edwards?
Yes.
Tia Ping?
Yes.
Wendy Kroger?
Yes.
Ashley Hartmeyer Prick?
Yes, motion passes. Thank you, Jessica. Next up, we would like to, as a board, complete a couple proclamations. So our first one is National Developmental Disabilities Month. I'll give everyone a moment to grab their copies of the proclamation so we can read that together. Okay, oops, I have the wrong one in front of me. Okay, here we go. Whereas THPRD is committed to providing individuals of all abilities the opportunity to play, learn, and enjoy high-quality park and recreation facilities, programs, services, and natural areas, and
whereas THPRD is dedicated to removing barriers to participation and fostering an inclusive culture, and
whereas THPRD is committed to creating awareness about developmental disabilities, teaching the importance of inclusion within every aspect of life, and to sharing the stories of individuals with a disability to show that a successful life is possible, and
whereas about 1 in 6 children in the United States experience one or more developmental disability, and
whereas THPRD is a leader in access for all, championing inclusion services for people of all abilities to be able to fully participate in programs and activities.
Now, therefore, the Board of Directors of the Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District do hereby declare the month of March 2021 as National Developmental Disabilities Month, and do urge all those in the Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District to support and promote this observance.
Thank you. Our next proclamation is about National Women's History Month. Whereas the roots of National Women's History Month began in March 1857, when women from various New York City factories staged a protest over working conditions, and
whereas women of diverse backgrounds have made historic contributions to the growth and strength of our nation in countless ways, and
Forgive me if somebody could read mine. My proclamation is not opening up.
whereas THPRD exists today because of the pioneering vision and spirit of a female leader, Elsie Sturr, who in 1953 began a 2-year effort that led to the creation of THPRD, and
Whereas because of the persistence and leadership of Elsie Sturr, I think of, nonetheless, she persisted, a physical education teacher, mother, and wife who served on the THPRD Board of Directors for 18 years and understood the importance of dedicated park and recreation services we all enjoy today. And
whereas THPRD has become a nationally accredited award-winning provider of park and recreation services that employs creative, innovative, and hard-working women that are dedicated to our profession, and
whereas THPRD has many women that lead throughout the district, from the board of directors, staff directors, senior managers, and center supervisors, who are all dedicated public servants that make THPRD a better organization for their contributions.
Now, therefore, the Board of Directors of Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation does hereby declare the month of March 2021 as National Women's History Month, and do urge all those in the Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District to support and promote this observance.
Is now joining.
thank you so much. Jessica, would you please play the video for us?
Hi everyone, I am Ashley Hartmeyer-Prigg. I am the current chair of the Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District Board, and happy Women's History Month. Being an elected leader in our area, a woman serving, is one of my greatest honors. It fills my heart every day, and I love uplifting other women to serve as well. So thank you to all of our women who are leading on our advisory committees, who participate in our district, who volunteer for us, who are employees. Happy Women's History Month to you.
Hello everybody, my name is Tia Ping and I am part of the Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation Board of Directors. I am so honored to be a local female elected because of the chance to give back to a community that has given me so much and given my family so much. I was raised in the area and now my children are growing up here, and I am just in love with our community, and I can only hope that in my position I'm able to give back and bring light to further our district in any way that is possible.
As we celebrate Women's History Month, it's an honor to reflect upon the legacy of the women who have come before us, and to think that just a little over 100 years ago, we as women were granted the right to vote through the ratification of the 19th Amendment in 1920. Not only did we gain the right to vote, but we earned the full responsibility of citizenship as men did. And to think how that has changed our society over the past century, not only for women, but for our gender non-conforming friends, for those who are LGBTQ, for our BIPOC communities.
Hello, my name is Wendy Kroger, and I have the great honor to be serving on the Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District Board of Directors. In honor of National Women's History Month, I wanted to share with you how delightful it is to be someone on a board and be elected by your community. It's an awesome experience. It's an awesome responsibility. What I would offer is find a mentor. You'll have people who want you to succeed. You'll find people who love what you want to do and will help you with your project and with your commitment to your community. We need women's ideas in our communities. So I urge that you do that.
Hello, I'm Felicita Montablanco. I serve on the board of directors for Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District. Happy Women's History Month. I'm excited to talk about Elsie Sturr, who had a vision for a parks district that was 50 square miles that served so many people, and today we get to live out that vision. And while she's no longer with us, every day we enjoy the trails, the parks, we get to see her hard work, her labor, all that she invested in her community, and how she built support to make this a reality.
As far as Elsie Sturr, she is just an inspiration and what we should aspire to, which is taking an idea, seeing what's missing in our community, creating a solution, and just rallying the community around something so great and having a legacy that is left to grow bigger and better every year by the next generation.
I'm privileged to follow in the footsteps of Elsie Sturr, our founding mother of THPRD, who in the early 50s mobilized and organized locals to pass an initiative to start and found Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District.
If you don't know who Elsie Sturr is, please check her out. This woman was a PE teacher who went around Beaverton and said, we need parks, we need recreational facilities before they're all gone. We need places for our kids to be outside. So please, please, check her out.
Thank you so much. That video just like makes my heart beam every time I see it. And so thank you for letting us participate in that to honor Women's History Month and to honor, I love that, Heidi, our founding mother, Elsie Sturr. Okay, next up is audience time. So Tia, I believe we have actually both of the items of public testimony we will do under item 8B with the West Side Trail Bridge. Since they both pertain to that, we'll save them and read them onto the record at that time.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. And no other written testimony was received tonight except for those pertaining to the West Side Trail Bridge. So we will move to agenda item 7, the consent agenda.
I'd like to make a motion that we move forward with the consent agenda as is.
This is Tia. I will second that.
Thank you. Jessica, will you please call the vote?
Wendy Kroger,
Yes.
Tia Ping,
Yes.
Heidi Edwards,
Yes.
Ashley Hartmeyer-Prigg.
Yes, motion passes. Thank you. Okay, so our next agenda item this evening, we'll move to unfinished business. And first up is our legislative update. So
Ashley, do you want to do board liaisons at all?
Oh, I totally missed that. I'm sorry. Yes, I do want to do that. I totally skipped it. So we're going back to board agenda item number 6. Sorry about that, colleagues. If you would please just raise your hand so I can acknowledge you, and we'll keep moving forward with that piece of the agenda. Wendy?
Hi, thank you. I have a new thing on my computer. It's we're working ourselves out. So sorry. I wanted to just report on some of the activities that are going on that I've been able to participate with. And the first one is the pension committee. We met on February 11th, and we had an update on our transition to U.S. Bank, which is going very smoothly, in very large part due to Lori. And we also received a quarterly pension review. Things look good. Secondly, I did get to attend a advisory committee meeting on the 17th. The Parks and Facilities Advisory Committee discussed committee goals and presentations that they'd like to see for in the next year. And they're also reviewing the Vision Action Plan to see how, as a group, they can help carry forward some of the action items detailed in the plan. It's a pretty interesting discussion of multicultural, as well as how we might consider using challenge grants. On the 18th, I attended the Greenway NAC meeting and heard the city present their current affordable housing progress. Kathy was present. She did a great job as usual representing THPRD. As we all did, I attended the budget meeting on the 24th and also Talking Walls, which were absolutely stunning. I wanted to thank staff for their following up on a coverage of that mural at Greenway. And I think Color Outside the Lines is going to be doing it, but it's for graffiti protection and weather protection. And I understand that's going to be underway soon. And I also wanted to thank staff maintenance staff for removing the masking tape that was up around the corner. I couldn't reach it. I got part of it, but I couldn't get the rest of it. And it was up on top of the elk and the sturgeon mural. And also thanks for the power washing. In 2 days, staff was out taking care of the power washing. It was all done, and there were comments when I went over there later that they were real tickled that it was in great shape. So the last thing I wanted to do was give kudos to John Campbell and the maintenance staff. I got a phone call from a neighbor who lives along the park and the creek, and in the last big storm we had, they had some real issues with down trees and things on their fence and, stuff shoved up against it. So they went out and took care of it. They knocked on the door, came with their chainsaws. It worked. They're very happy. They called me back and said that they were so happy that THPRD had done this. And so they're thrilled. And I just want to pass that along because all the kudos we can pass along, I like to. So thank you very much.
Yeah. I wanted to add too, Ashley, if I could real quick, that while Lori is more than happy to take all the thanks for the pension committee, and in many cases it's appropriate, but Cindy Hopper within her department played a key role as well, particularly in some of the more recent transitions from one security firm to another. Some critical steps in there, a lot of paperwork that needs to be processed, and so we want to thank Cindy Hopper as well, please.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Doug. Heidi?
Thank you, Ashley. A few things to report from the foundation side of the house with the Foundation Holiday Giving Campaign. We had donations for holiday kits, and those are going to be circulating here shortly. I have a little information about that. We have Fir Grove Elementary on March 9th, Mountain View Champions Park March 10th, and Kinnaman Elementary on March 11th during various, whether it's mobile rec or nature mobile or fitness in the park. Will be handing out those recreational kits. Approximately 300 of them were funded, and some of them sound like a lot of fun. One of them being, I think at Fir Grove Elementary, we'll be giving out planting kits for summer veggies. So excited to be able to share that with our community, and thanks to those who contributed and donated for us to be able to bring that to fruition through the foundation. Also from the foundation side, want to recognize and reflect on the service of two gentlemen who are leaving the foundation board. Mike McMurray, who has been serving as our board chair this past year. Just thank you for his service, who will be dearly missed, but I know not far away. And thank you to Jennifer Barrows for stepping into that chair position, as well as John Jones, who has been serving on the foundation board of trustees. He is going to be replaced by Scott Tumbleson. So we want to welcome Scott to the foundation as well. Aside from that, attended the Nature and Trails Advisory Committee meeting, and actually we just had some amazing engagement via email a lot of the month to work on establishing our goals and what we want moving forward. So we did a lot of work outside of our actual meeting. And I really want to commend our chair, Sherry Wentland, and Bruce, because there's been a lot of hard work and a lot of conversation to develop those goals. Also, it seems like there's some similar work, as Wendy mentioned, with the advisory committee that she's liaison to. Our group is taking a look at the Vision Action Plan as well to see how to update the natural resources functional plan, how, sort of to weave those together to some extent. Also looking at opportunities to apply for a community grant, which is due at the end of June. And then we've had some ideas from the advisory committee with respect to possible staff presentations, maybe regarding climate change adaptation strategies, emergency disaster preparedness, and the like. So it's been a very, very active month with that group. And again, I want to thank our chair, Sherry, for leading that. Aside from that, a lot of great events this month. Talking Walls at Greenway was amazing. I also attended the Highway 26 overpass event over at Pioneer Park, which was a lot of fun, really engaging, having us vote on, what we thought was going to be some of the best features and matches for the trail or the overpass there at Highway 26. So thanks to the staff. There were a lot of staff out there that day and volunteers, not only at Pioneer Park for the Highway 26 overpass, but obviously for the Talking Walls event. Want to recognize that you're taking your weekend time and doing those activities within our community. So thank you for that. And then I'll pass it to the next one.
Thank you, Heidi, for those updates and those acknowledgements. Tia.
Hello. Okay, so we had was the liaison for programs and events. And so the meeting was basically trying to figure out what we were going to focus as far as goals this year. And there was a huge discussion and a wide varied of things that we could focus on, but we actually ended up settling on we'd really like to focus on creating more volunteering opportunities, which I think is beautiful and a perfect time to do that. We programs and events also potentially might pick up something about a park passport, where we can help encourage our community to visit different parks and potentially get a stamp or something that, and once they kind of complete their trips around our district, then maybe hopefully get a treat or something. So that was a really unique idea presented by one of our community members. What else? Oh, we a couple of us board members also met with some of our new state senators and representatives, and we knew a couple of them, and we were able to have really dynamic conversations and great quick conversations because they're so busy. And I believe Kylie will follow up later with this meeting with updates regarding different legislations we're interested in, but it was really great to share all the great things that we're doing and get to know them a little bit better so they know that we're here. Registration for spring happened quickly. I was able to snag a couple classes for the kids. Tennis was gone in I think within the first 3 minutes. But I did get one for one child, and then my little kindergartner was a little bit upset, but hopefully waitlisting, if anybody's listening, you should always wait list for a class in case somebody else drops out so we can move ahead in those spots. And then the last thing I did want to talk about was I just wanted to take some time to call out and bring awareness and address the current events of increase in assaults, harassments, and hate crimes that have been recently directed towards Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, or the AAPI community. Just for those who are unaware, there's just been a concerning surge of anti-Asian hate with the rise of COVID and the rhetoric about the virus's origins being in China. To be clear, though, the racism is not new. It's always existed, but our climate today has just emboldened people who are racist to feel like they are allowed to spew or act on these xenophobic ideals without any consequences. And so just myself being a daughter of immigrants and refugee parents, I was born here in the United States, but growing up, I remember little events from small microaggressions of being called Oriental to prominent big ones where I remember a voicemail that got left on our home messaging from a woman, a white woman who was getting evicted from one of the rentals we own, and she was just spewing profanities at us, telling us to get out of the country, and that we stole everything from her, and how dare we be in this country. And so just things like that, and even growing up, having conversations with my dad in middle school, because I played table tennis competitively, and how it was important for me to go by the name, my middle name, which is Emily, because he figured if we ever got to the Olympics, which my sister actually did, that it was important that people thought we were from the United States and not imported. So we actually, for quite a few years, I went by the name of Emily rather than Satya. So there's that. And I mean, it's not new. Like just last month, my cousin at a grocery store who's a teenager was told to go back to her country. We're Cambodian. She's never even been to Cambodia. So it's not new, and it's very much still here. So being a part of this board and with this amazing staff that we have, I can just say without a doubt that THPRD and our board are committed to equity and social justice, and that there's no place for hateful rhetoric and no tolerance for it here in our community. Many times I think people are told, like, ignore the bully and they'll get tired and go away, but this is not how we should treat anything or any kind of social injustice. Not saying anything gives space. Giving space gives oxygen to the fire for trolls and racists and for the injustice to just continue. So I would just advocate for everyone to always say something or do something when you see something. We can't always expect victims to stand up for themselves alone or defend themselves. It has to be a community-driven initiative that we are all a part of. So I just want to say, please take care of one another, check in on one another, report xenophobic, bias, or discriminatory incidences, and stand up for one another. And as a board and an organization, I hope we continue to advance the practice of inclusiveness, understanding, compassion, and do our part in promoting respect and cultural understanding. So thank you.
Tia, thank you so much for sharing those words and sharing your experiences with us. Everything you said, right? We stand against hate. We stand up against hate. And so I just appreciate everything you said. With that, I think all of the things that I did this month, one of you is already updated on, so that's wonderful. And Tia's words are just so powerful. So now we can go back to agenda item 8, since I put us out of order. I apologize for that. And it looks like Aisha will be kicking us off.
Yes, thank you very much. Board members, I would like to let you know that we have Kylie Bruno, our lobbyist, here on the call, and she'll be coming on just shortly to share an update on the bills. But I did want to acknowledge today that we have a federal bill that has passed. And so the American Rescue Plan Act is the $1.9 trillion bill, and of that number, I see some clapping hands with the reactions in our team's call, and I absolutely agree with that. One big element of that 1.9 trillion is the $360 billion that has been allocated to state and local aid. And right now we're not listed as direct recipients of those dollars, but we are eligible for a pass-through of those dollars, which is fantastic. And we've been the recipient of dollars that had been allocated to Washington County. And so we're hopeful that that will continue on. But one thing I did want to point out is that these funds can be used to address a number of negative economic impacts that we have felt as organizations within Oregon. And while we were not specifically called out for a dollar amount, the areas near us were. And so one of the numbers I wanted to give you is $116 million, which will go to Washington County, and Beaverton will receive $17 million, I think. So those are great fusions of cash to an economy that has definitely felt the impacts of the coronavirus pandemic. So we're very happy to be a part of that, and we continue to advocate at the federal level and reach out to our senators and congresswomen to talk about what THPRD could truly benefit from. So with that, I just wanted to share that positive news and then to introduce Kylie, who will share more information about the meetings that we've recently had with legislators, as well as all of the bills that we're currently following. So Kylie, if you'd like to come on screen, please.
I think I'm here. Can you see me and hear me okay?
We can, yes.
Okay. Hi, everyone. So I wanted to first say thank you to everyone who did the new legislator visits. One of you just mentioned that in your updates, but thank you. Those were really great meetings. Like you said, they were dynamic and good conversations. And we were able to share a little bit about our district and our priorities, and while also building on the relationships that many of you already have with the legislators. So really just well done, and I appreciate your time in doing those. And I'd really like to build on those new legislator visits by doing the rest of our delegation, and I'll talk a little bit about that at the end of my comments. So a little bit of context for where we're at right now in session. The very first real deadline of the session is coming up on March 19th. All bills have to be scheduled for a work session by that date. And then the next deadline, they have to have had that work session by April 13th. And anything that has not had a work session by then is effectively dead because it hasn't moved through the process the way it needs to. Couple caveats, this doesn't apply to a couple of the committees like the Rules Committee. So those are kind of where they put some of the bigger and more important bills, and or any of the joint committees, especially the ones that work on the budget, are not subject to these same deadlines. But it is a very good marker in the sand to see kind of what is not still bubbling, what is not still alive, and where we're starting to see momentum in the bills that we really do need to pay attention to and figure out how we feel about. I also wanted to note that with that means that like the last 2 weeks of March and the first 2 weeks of April are going to be very kind of tense and frenetic. And I think I've shared that with some of you already. And we're seeing that a bit already. About a week and a half ago, the Senate Republicans walked out of their floor session just to over a couple different things. The House Republicans are asking that all bills be read right now. So there's just, it's tense and there's lots of things happening. So hopefully we'll get through these first deadlines and start to see what's what and be able to move forward. I'm not going to go through all of the bills today. What I wanted to do is share with you kind of the ones that have moved most recently and that we're seeing activity on, and then I'm happy to answer any questions or go into something that I didn't mention. So I wanted to start, and at any time, so right now I don't see any faces, I just see all of your initials. So raise a hand on the little thingy if you need to stop or slow down or anything like that. So the first one is going to be House Bill 3115, and this is the one we've talked about before. It is the Speaker's bill that codifies the case law around Boise v. Martin. It's the one that provides that local law regulating sitting, lying, sleeping, or keeping warm and dry outdoors on public property must be objectively reasonable as to time, place, and manner. So that had a hearing yesterday. It was also there was also supposed to be a hearing on the right to rest bill, House Bill 2367, but that was actually pulled from the schedule on Monday. I haven't got real clarity around why the right to rest bill was pulled. There's a couple of different things possibly at play here. One is that, as we shared and heard from legislators, that the House Bill 3115 really does have momentum. It's the bill that had the interim work session, or the kind of the interim negotiations. It was an official work group, but had cities and the Oregon Law Center and counties really working hard and going into negotiations about how to codify that case law. Because really the bill, I mean, there's case law that already is true and we have to adhere to, but this codifies it within state statute and it gives a little bit of a stronger framework and clarifies some points for us on the ground. So as I said, it had a hearing yesterday. Several different jurisdictions and cities came out in support and appreciating that codification for them. So we're currently monitoring it as it is about city and county ordinances and not special districts, but we're going to watch how it goes through the process. It is unclear if the right to rest bill is going to get a hearing, but as I said, we'll continue to monitor that as well and let you know when and if what that looks like. And along with these two bills, there are lots of other ones, but there's a couple other ones that are also kind of moving or getting some activity traction right now. Senate Bill 410 is a bill, and I can't remember if we went too deep into it last time, but it has to do with the storage facilities, storing things, those kind of requirements for when homeless camps are removed or moved. So Senator Gorsuch put this out there. There's actually negotiations happening because there were some unintended consequences for some of the more rural parts of our state around like distance to a storage facility, public transportation, and that kind of thing. So there's been some talk with him and some negotiations about perhaps either putting that into a task force or a work group over the summer, because there are several different bills that look at some of the same things about how and when to address homeless camps, how long a notice needs to be up, how long you should store things, where they should be. And so instead of kind of doing all these one-off bills, it might make more sense to do an actual official task force to look into this and best practices and how we can make it make sense for different areas across the state, because what works maybe in metropolitan Portland area doesn't necessarily work in Southeast Oregon. So there's some of those conversations going on. And there's one other bill, House Bill 3124, which is in the same vein, that we're kind of monitoring all of these together to see what's going to move and how that's going to be addressed by the legislature. So then I will move on to the next bill area, Senate Bill 299, and this is the bill that would allow for the establishment of children's service districts. We had a meeting with Senator Riley to express our concerns that we had talked about in the last board meeting, that were really focused on equity and access and the lack of that being addressed in the bill language and in the development of the bill. So we shared those concerns, and while I think he did hear us, and he heard what we had to say, and he shared with us that he wasn't quite sure why the language didn't reflect a priority around equity within the bill. The bill did move out of committee, I think it was last week, without any changes to address that issue. And when we did talk with him, he mentioned that there had been members of the BIPOC community and different culturally specific or culturally relevant organizations at the table from the beginning, even though that's not reflected in kind of what we could see and what we know. So he mentioned two different organizations in particular. And we actually, Ashley was a participant in that meeting, and she was going to do some due diligence on our behalf to reach out to those organizations and ask, what has been their interaction and how do they feel about that bill, because it isn't evident in the testimony or any of the hearings that we were able to see. So wanted to share that with you. It did pass out of the committee that it was in easily, and it is expected to pass the Senate also easily. But where the opposition and the fight will likely occur is on the House side, and that many of the stakeholders who do have concerns with that bill for all different reasons, and some of which we talked about last time, are actually getting together this Friday to start to strategize about what to do when it gets to the House side and how to take that on. So I wanted to let you know and give you that update, and really appreciate Ashley offering to do that outreach. So thank you. And then the last specific bill I'm going to mention is House Bill 3040, which was a placeholder for language around system development charges. We had been unclear going into session. Janine had sat on the work group that was called together by Representative Lively and a couple other legislators to kind of dive into the issue of system development charges across the board. And as I said, it wasn't clear what was going to happen with that legislatively, but then there was a work group, I think just over a week ago, where at the very end of it, Representative Lively announced that he would be and had been working on bill language that he was going to amend into the placeholder he has, and that it was going to address 4 areas. So the need for a comprehensive study, transparency, making sure that people, when they buy a home, that they know kind of the different charges that go into it, and also that there are, that everything is posted and it's in your budget or presented at budget hearings and that kind of thing, but that the average person may not know how to access that. And so trying to address that piece of it. Timing of payment, so deferrals, paying at the time of permit versus certificate of occupancy versus actually being in the home. So trying to looking at that as well. And then also a piece around manufactured housing, concern around paying the same amount of system development charges for a stick-built residential home versus a manufactured home like in a park rather than like a single dwelling. So those are the 4 areas, and I wish I had more detail to tell you about those, but we haven't actually seen the language. So while all the stakeholders, especially the ones who are on the work group representing local jurisdictions, are concerned, and it's especially concerning that it was just shared with the group at the very end of a meeting, so there's no ability to kind of talk through what he meant and what his goals were about with some of those things. We are monitoring this really closely, strategizing all of that, but it's kind of hard to really figure out how we want to respond and what we want to do on these and what we want to share and what we can support and what we can't until we see the actual language. And Janine, if you want to jump in at any time, please do. But I would note that one of the things of those 4, what makes the most sense to a lot of us sitting around that table monitoring this and paying attention is the comprehensive study. Really looking into that and getting a better understanding of the interplay between these different system development charges. What is the cost of infrastructure in Oregon and what are the sources of being able to pay for that, and understanding how that drives SDCs would really be the most important thing to do before we start talking about when you pay them, how you make sure everybody knows what they look like, and the different types around manufactured housing. So that's one way that we're kind of thinking about looking at it. But as soon as we have actual language and specifics, we'll kind of dive in and be able to come back to the board with more information about how it might impact THPRD and get a sense of where we'd like to be on the bill. So those are the primary things are kind of moving and hopping right now, though there's lots of other things. So please feel free to ask me about what you want, though I may not all know it off the top of my head. I can surely find out for you. The last thing I wanted to circle back to the beginning when I talked about legislative visits. They were, like I said, wonderful. Thank you so much for your time in doing those. And we do want to try to build off of those to do the entire THPRD delegation, all the different legislators. And so right now we're targeting the last 2 weeks of April after that first deadline, when we can really get a good sense of what we're talking about, what kind of bills are still around, and where we should put our efforts, and also where our legislators are thinking and trying to put their priority areas around. Which also coincides with, as I understand it, I believe the next board meeting is on April 14th, and the deadline will have been April 13th. So we can include a little bit of that and update on kind of where the legislative session stands as of that first big deadline, and also maybe an update on trying to get some of those meetings with the entire delegation. So I always talk fast, but that's my report and my update so far, but happy to answer any questions or talk more about anything in detail.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kylie. It looks like Heidi's got a question, and then if you just see other hands, feel free to call.
Sure.
No question. Just comment, Kylie. Thank you for helping coordinate us there, and for Doug and Aisha also participating in those legislative visits. It was good for us to be together to do that and to meet the new folks, even though we had known most of them. So thank you for your hard work and coordination. It's a crazy time in Salem. Or across the state, I should say, because we're all doing everything virtually right now, right. Pretty much.
Yes, the crazy place in the legislative arena, right? That's where we're all virtually in Salem. Yes, well, thank you, Heidi.
Thanks for your work with that, though.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. So I don't see any other hands, but am I missing someone?
Nope, I think you're right. And Kylie, I have done some outreach, but I'm waiting to hear back on the groups that I am contacting. So I will let you know when I have more information.
I greatly appreciate that, and I assumed you'd already done the outreach, but to the point that Heidi was just making about things being virtual, what used to just be something that wouldn't take that long now, the virtual world could take a little while longer to make that outreach. So let me know. We will have a little bit of time on that because it has to get through the Senate and before it gets over to the House. So we have some couple weeks to get things figured out.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. I don't see hands from Tier 1 so Kylie, thank you for everything, and for simplifying, and helping us know what's important and relevant for us. It's really helpful.
You're very welcome. It's a pleasure to work with you guys, and it was also lovely to watch the beginning of the meeting to see the video for Women's History Month and to hear the proclamations and Tia, your words. I really appreciated the opportunity to hear that. So thank you for allowing me to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for being with us. Okay, our next agenda item is West Side Trip. A clarifying point on the order. Will we go through Janine's presentation and then have Tia read the testimony onto the record?
Yes, that'd be preferred.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. All right, Janine.
I am going to share my screen while I get this up. Janine Rustad, your planning manager. Hopefully you're seeing my screen now.
Yep. Yes.
Great. So I'm here this evening to present on the West Side Trail Bridge. Again, let me get everything working. This is our second time presenting to you this evening, and I will be seeking some feedback. I have recommendations on 3 points. First, to orient us in the district. This is Highway 26, and then the bridge study area is from Northwest Greenbrier on the south and Northwest Cornell Road on the north. We are seeking funding for design of the trail to the south as well as to the north, bringing us up to the West Side Trail 18, which was recently completed. And then a small section of the trail along Walker Road will be constructed starting this summer when the county starts the Walker Road improvements. We have completed 1 survey so far, and I just wanted to highlight here that of the respondents, the most important things to them are traffic safety and accessibility, followed by nature and sustainable design, aesthetics, and resting places. So getting into the bridge and trail alignments, just a reminder of the constraints we are working in. Of course, there's the BPA corridor, so their power lines running north-south. There's also PGE power lines on both sides of the highway running east-west. This is the south over here. We have the wetland on the north and the perennial stream. The natural gas line that runs underneath here. And of course, there is a grade change from north to south. Reminder, the good news is we can get a bridge in here. So the first question I have for you this evening, and I just want to say that while we have option 1 and 2, what was really comforting when we went through this with our consultant is it's not all or nothing. We can pick and choose between the 2 options to come up with the best alignment. So the first question has to do with the approach of the trail to Northwest Cornell Road. There's 2 options. One is straight, and one is a more perpendicular, so a more curved approach. It does not put trail users very much out of the way. This is safer as it has better visibility. This is not also uncommon within the district, within our trail system. The one I'm most familiar with is the Waterhouse Trail at Walker Road. Because this alignment has better visibility and thus safety, this is our recommendation to the board. So with that, I will pause here to get your feedback on this first issue.
Heidi?
Well, it's an obvious yes to me if it's safer and better visibility. So I'll put that out there. Yeah, to move forward with that option instead.
Thank you.
Tia?
Janine, can you clarify why it's safer? Is it just the visibility or?
That is my understanding. Yes, it is the visibility. And of course, we will have some treatment. We haven't figured out with the county what the treatment will be for the crossing here. Even before the trail's built on the north side, people are going to be crossing to get to this portion.
I guess, but they both end at the same place. Are we talking about visibility from Cornell, or I guess I'm just a little bit confused on
the cars?
What?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. Yes, I'm fully supportive of the curvy part.
Wendy?
Trying to undo my hand here. It's not undoing. Sorry, just ignore it. You mostly answered my question with regard to when we hit Cornell Road, what happens? Because that is one issue. I like
my fellow board members before me, I do prefer the perpendicular for two reasons. One is when you have a real long straight shot, people with really good bicycles can go really fast. And I think it's better if we have a recognition that there are going to be pedestrians here as well as people who are not professional bikers riding this trail. So I tend to like to have a curve when it's appropriate. So thank you.
Thank you. And with regard to what will happen with the trail, in my ideal world, and we are pursuing funding, is we'll have this bridge and the north and south legs of trails under construction. I would love to say within 3 to 5 years. My hope is at least within 5 to 7 years.
Thank you, Janine. I'm also in support of the perpendicular option.
Great. Thank you. So moving on, the second option is, or the second question has to do with the grade and primarily as you're approaching Cornell. Again, to the left where the pointer is south and this is north. So option 1 does have a small section, and this still meets ADA, but it does have a small section that is 7.8, so almost 8% grade, whereas option 2 keeps everything below 5%. This just requires a little more cut and fill. I do want to point out that while the straight bridge, you see more of a peak on it, the consultant said they can flatten that out as well, because to Wendy's point, the Beaverton Bicycle Advisory Committee was concerned with that. They liked this flatter bridge deck, so we are looking into that, irrespective of which option on the bridge, which is the next question. So this question is, do you prefer option 1, which has less cut and fill, but does get a little steeper grade, or option 2, which keeps us below our target of 5.5% for the entire length?
Wendy?
Excuse me, a couple of questions. One is, when you say cut and fill, does that more or less impact two things? One is financial, and the second is the wetland or the sensitive area.
The wetland and sensitive area I will address in the next question. This cut and fill is beyond that. So it is to the north of, I believe this is Columbia Way. So it's just in this area. And it will be slightly more cost. The consultant didn't put a number on this, but it's not huge.
Okay, so that's not an issue that we'd need to be particularly concerned about at this point.
They told me no.
Okay.
Tia?
So obviously I feel like you'd want the least amount of like change in grade, but so I guess my question is, I don't really understand like what would be the pro for option 1? I mean, what is doing less cut and grade? Is it affecting nature, or is there something that I'm missing?
There might be a slight cost savings, and then you'll see in the rendering that we have, this is Columbia's parking lot. So there's a small retaining wall and a fence so that the cars, this really, they were looking at different options. The big change, the big difference is in the next question about the bridge itself. But we wanted to put these out there.
Okay. I mean, for my standards, you always seem to like want as least of a grade as possible for access and everything, and safety and kids riding bikes and those kinds of things. So that would be my thing. Minus, I just still can't see, like, why is option 1 even an option? So.
Well, and when we first started talking to the consultant, it was more of a all or nothing. And we on the THPRD team said, well, why can't we do this even if you went with the straight bridge? And they went back and looked and said, you can.
Oh, okay.
We're
option 2.
We're moving fast on this project.
Gotcha.
So
thank you, Tia. Janine, yeah, I was struggling with the same questions Tia was, so I am definitely leaning towards option 2. I think the least amount of changes is best to make it the most accessible trail that we possibly can. Heidi?
Agreed.
Wonderful. So now we get into the fun question, and this has to do with the bridge itself. The consultant, specifically our bridge engineer, looked at 2 options. One, a straight bridge across Highway 26, and one, a curved. The curved was examined to see if we could avoid or lessen the impacts to the wetland and the wetland buffer. What they found is with the temporary and permanent, it is essentially a wash. It comes down to a difference of maybe 10 feet. And one option favored the straight, the other option favored the curve. So again, everything was equal with the impacts to the wetland. What the challenges came up, however, with this curved option is that the curve cannot be a prefabricated bridge. So it would have to be a custom made bridge, which adds to the cost. The other drawback of the curved is it does clip a private property here. So although this is in the air, it is still a takings. We would have to negotiate with that property owner to be able to put this here with no guarantee they would want that. Whereas a straight option keeps it within the BPA right of way. The BPA is one of our agency stakeholders, and so far they have voiced no complaints. And then I do want to point out that at the Beaverton, when we presented this to the Beaverton Bicycle Advisory Committee, one of the members liked the curved because, again, that had a flatter deck. But when I brought that up with the bridge engineer, they can flatten this out so you don't have the potential of people coming off the bridge on their bike and going at high speeds around walkers, joggers, and children. So we can combine the best of all worlds. Our recommendation, although some of the public has voiced preference visually for this curved, is for the straight, because there will be savings of just on the structure itself, $500,000 to $1.5 million. But that doesn't take into account special equipment that may need to be brought in. With the curved option, it's likely we would have longer highway closing, which may add more uncertainty to the project. And then with some of the options we've looked at on curved bridge, one in particular that we had shown in a previous meeting with stakeholders, the supports were 50 feet apart, and here we're a little over 100. So it becomes very challenging. It's not that it can't be done, but it would add more uncertainty to the project. Again, one of the things we're doing this preliminary concept or master plan is to get costs for this bridge that we can go forward with certainty, knowing that we are within a range. So staff recommendation is for the straight. What we have been discussing is that with that cost savings, we can do more with the aesthetics of the bridge, more with art either on the bridge or in the approaches. And then adding potentially a trailhead in this vicinity where you could have some comfort features. This is going to make a very long connection in the district, so having a nice trailhead could be another benefit we could add. With that, I will open it up for your input.
Heidi?
I don't want to say that it sounds obvious again, but so just to clarify, cost and negotiations with that property owner. So I'm talking about option 2, cost, correct. Negotiations with the property owner, potential for longer freeway closure.
Yeah.
And there was something else in there. it just sounds like so much uncertainty on option 1 that I would defer to on option 2 that I would defer to option 1.
And that is our recommendation. Again, option 2 could be more visually appealing, but another thing our bridge engineer brought up was you don't want people stopping on the bridge. It's going to have a 14-foot clearance, and although it'll be fenced, we want to keep people moving, and we also don't want to be a distraction for the drivers.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, so option 1.
Thank you.
Tia?
I just want to clarify, just because I'm looking at this picture and the wetlands is going under, were we trying to, is it going to do anything to the wetlands or the flooding of anything, straight versus curved?
We're doing all the hydro, whatever the technical word is, I'm forgetting right now, but we do studies to make sure that we are mitigating any impacts. And actually at the first meeting, Columbia brought up, it's a little off the map in this area, that there's a culvert that goes under the highway. So we want to work with ODOT and Columbia to see if we can, through our project, potentially mitigate the problems they have with that culvert getting clogged and then water coming up to Columbia Way and into their parking lot. So we will mitigate, and it's really what's impacting would be the supports for the bridge. So there is one in both cases, it's in the wetland, and then here, both cases, one just adjacent to the buffer.
Okay, but there's not an advantage for one or the other versus the wetland stuff.
It ended up being a wash. That one impact had more of a temporary of about 10 to 20 feet, and then one had more of a permanent by about 10 to 20 feet. It was nothing that they considered significant.
Okay. Yeah, I'm all about saving money. So option 1 is where I go.
Thank you.
Wendy?
Thank you. I think that one of the reasons people were looking at option 2 is curves tend to be prettier. And so I would assume what they were attempting to do was go for the aesthetic. So from my point of view, first of all, I'm so thrilled that we're planning on and hoping to have a bridge across 26 that, you know, it could almost be burlap. I don't care. But I knowing that that's what we're working on, and that we're working on safety, and that we're going to make it safe for both drivers and for bicyclists and pedestrians, and the wetland is going to be taken care of as well. I would go for option 1 with the proviso that that does not mean that I want a rusty old bucket of a bridge across 26. I definitely do want aesthetics as best as we can get them. I mean, I think of the Telecom Bridge. People complained a lot about the price. Nobody complains about the price anymore, as my friend Kevin O'Donnell says. But you know, this is a beautiful location to make a statement of the beauty of our area. So I am happy if we can save the money on going to option 1, for example, and then use part of that for the aesthetics and for a good trailhead, because I think people are going to need it. So if I don't want to give up on the aesthetics, I don't want an old rusty thing looking, you know, across the highway. We need to make it beautiful. Our area is beautiful. But the overall thing for me is that it's safe, and it's something we so much need. And I'm very excited that we're looking at it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I am in agreement that option 1 is my preference. Oh, Heidi, you have something else?
I just have to say, one of the nuances of not having in-person meetings is that Wendy didn't hear me just laugh about the burlap bridge. So I just have to toss a little humor into the seriousness of everything, because thank you, Wendy. I just got a cute chuckle out of that. So and agree with what you're saying as well, but I'm curious what burlap bridges look like too.
Thank you. I don't think they're very sturdy.
That was my biggest concern, Wendy.
And with the rain we get, I'm going to recommend we don't go with burlap. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that input. Now that you've done the hard part, I wanted to end with some visuals. So we have two renderings. This is coming from the south as you approach. You can see how we gradually have to bring this up. And there is a survey, and I'll have the link at the end of the PowerPoint. If you haven't taken the survey yet, please do, because we give some options for this wall, what that could look like, as well as this fencing, and then also the fencing on the bridge. Moving to the north side, this is Columbia Way, and this is one of the treatments for safety that we're looking at, is making the crosswalk there raised. And we do have inquiry into Columbia because at our last stakeholders meeting, it was brought up getting wayfinding and being able to use Columbia Way for high school students to get off the trail and get to Sunset High School. And then again, the survey, Liana from our embedded communication person did an amazing job with the help of Peter Swinton, our urban planner, of coming up with some ideas of what the fencing on the bridge could look like. Here's a few ideas. Again, what the fencing on the ramps, what the ramps themselves can look like. And my favorite part of the event that we had on the 27th was a young gentleman, maybe 12 years old, and looking at the examples. One had fish, and I think it was for one of the retaining walls. And he says he loved that example. He loved that material. But given where we live, it should be a forest. And just hearing kids be engaged and talking about the design, it was so eye-opening, because as Liana responded to one of them, that this is your bridge. You are the one that's going to use it the most. So from the person who usually does the dry, boring stuff, this is really an honor and a privilege to be working on this project. So thank you for this opportunity. Please go do the survey, both our board members, anyone listening. Here's a link. It's on our website. And with that, I'll take any additional questions.
Thank you so much, Janine. Are there any other questions? Okay, then we will actually move to public testimony on the topic. Tia, if you could read onto the record the items submitted.
Okay. Oh, my hand is still up. Okay, so the first letter is from Jeffrey Petrillo. It says, Dear THPRD board members, I am a resident of the Bethany community and have lived in the THPRD district for over 20 years. And whenever I venture out on the trails in our neighborhood by foot or bike, I am reminded of how much the THPRD trail system contributes to the quality of life in our community. The last 20 years has seen great improvements in the trail system in our community, which I am sure took a great deal of work and dedication by the THPRD staff. And the popularity of these trails with the public, even prior to the COVID pandemic, continues to increase. I recently learned of the department's proposal to extend and connect the West Side Trail with a bridge over Highway 26. I also attended the public event that the department hosted a couple of Saturdays ago, and I wish to express my strong support for this bridge proposal for the following reasons. It will connect neighborhoods on the north and the south of 26 currently separated geographically, socially, and economically. The bridge will provide pedestrian and bike access and commuting between the large number of new homes being constructed north of the highway and the commercial services and places of employment on the south side of Highway 26. I work in central Beaverton and often commute by bike, and traversing Highway 26 is an obstacle for many people considering commuting by bike. The lack of dedicated pedestrian bike bridge creates unnecessary out-of-direction travel routes over busy and unsafe interchanges. I believe the construction of the bridge will enhance property values on both sides of the highway and increase local tax revenue. I previously lived in Atlanta and saw the amazing impact the Beltline trail system had on communities connected by those trails. Neighborhoods previously separated by race and income benefited from a trail system that cut across barriers of roads and waterways. The result, by any measure, was enhanced livability and public safety and economic well-being for all communities along the trail. The construction of a well-designed, aesthetically pleasing bridge dedicated as a pedestrian bike trail will become a prominent landmark and placemaking element in our suburban communities that are sometimes marked by having no distinctive design features. Bridges used by motor vehicles play a critical role in our life, enabling us to get to work or school and contributing to economic development. But a trail bridge such as the one proposed would be a people's bridge that connects communities in ways that will provide tangible and intangible value far beyond than the upfront cost of materials and labor. Thank you.
Thank you, Tia.
And then our second testimony is from Kevin O'Donnell, who said, I support the West Side Trail Bridge over Highway 26. In addition to my support, I request THPRD, 1, build with art and tourism in mind and recognize that this will be a long-term major landmark for THPRD, Beaverton, Washington County, Metro, and the state. 2, build this as soon as possible by winning grants and exploring corporate partnerships and funding. And we will have an amazing opportunity to make this connector a true landmark. Let's not only connect the community, but also build a beautiful bridge that millions of people will see and possibly experience.
Thank you so much, Tia, for reading those onto the record, and thank you to our community members for submitting that. I want to reiterate Janine's call to action around that survey. It is the the best way to give input on our plans as well. Wendy.
Thank you. I had an opportunity to review part of Kevin's testimony, and I was wondering if it would be appropriate for us to make sure that Janine gets his entire report, and probably Jeffrey's too, just for part of the work that we're doing, because he did a lot of research, and I think it would be, he may already have provided it to you, I don't know. But I just thought that some of the information he provided was pretty interesting. So I just wanted to make sure the committee had that.
We do have that. And I want to point out that the study he refers to by Streetlight, we had commissioned, and we did mention that in our first presentation to the board. We had commissioned that study because we wanted to show who would use this bridge, because this is going to be very crucial to us as we seek funding and given the board's commitment to racial equity.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Then our next action item is the general manager's report.
Yes, and the great news I have for you is that it's not going to be me speaking. It's going to be Lulu. Lulu?
Hello, everybody. Lulu Ballesteros with Communications. And I'm here to share the wonderful journey of what the Talking Walls project has been. And on the next slide, to provide a little bit of background. So it's late March. Let's go back in late March 2020, after the murder of George Floyd and many others before him and after him. We also had the Black Lives Matter movement. The pandemic was hitting us head on. While all of this was happening in early June, as a response to systemic racism, our general manager, Doug Menke, shared a very important message with the community about how THPRD stands with our community in solidarity for racial justice. And also within our community, there were many spaces where families, students, parents came together to express that exact same solidarity. So while all this is happening, the district started to think about responding to this need of expression and community gathering while the pandemic was an everyday reality, so it wasn't easy to come about ideas. This is when leadership and several departments came together and collaborated in the creation of these spaces. So it was basically Holly, our communications director, bringing us all together. We talked to Mark from Park Patrol, John from maintenance, design and development, community programs, all these key areas around the district coming together in the search of a positive source of inspiration and connection with the community and focusing on racial and social justice. On the next slide. And then with all this in mind and with that search of creating an appropriate space and also where we could have community gathering. So 2 pilot projects were proposed. First off, we want to acknowledge that these projects were made possible and conceived thanks to the Psyche Grant Award from Washington County as part of the Federal CARES Act. And on our next slide, we will see that we selected 2 sites where we can create these talking walls. They were selected with schools that were close by in mind. It was also ideal spaces to deter the amount of graffiti that we had there as a form of vandalism. Mark took us on a tour all over the district to find these ideal spaces. On our next slide, the next step was to reach out with the community. We started conversations with Mr. Arnold. He's the advisor from the Black Student Union from Sunset High School. He had 2 co-presidents at the time of the Black Student Union. And we just started searching for ideal artists, partners, BIPOC artists. And we were also looking for something that would be not only the creation of murals, but something that could be a true experience for these students and youth. On our next slide, in this journey, we found what we call our ideal partner. We met Anna Barlow from Color Outside the Lines. Color Outside the Lines is a nonprofit that empowers and inspires youth by providing opportunities with art, music, movement, creativity. And also their expertise was exactly what we were looking for, creating workshops, creating an environment, a true experience. And they have amazing contacts with BIPOC artists, with youth. It's basically what they do. On our next slide, that's when everything starts. Work starts. We're talking about July, August 2020. Aside from getting the ideas and what the Black Student Union conceived of what those walls could look like, we were putting together a review committee that helped us revise whatever projects were going to be brought in, meaning the murals. We had a THPRD board member participate, staff from THPRD that were working on the project. We had Visioning Task Force members participate. We had a member from the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, an AGMA teacher. So it was wonderful to bring all these key people together as well. And as we said, we wanted a Talking Walls experience. On the next slide. This is all happening on the first option at Sunset. The artists as mentors. So the conception was having BIPOC artists work with students in creating different pieces that had a message that they wanted to send out. The first piece, we see it's Edmund Holmes, and he worked with Ella and Jenny on a total of 3 pieces. We'll see the art at the end. Then on the next slide, we see Kira Watkins. She worked with Amara Marluk. And something that I want to highlight is that some of these students were ready to work with an artist, but others were hesitating. They were not sure if there was something that they were able to do. So through this mentorship and this work together, their ideas and feelings are really brought into the art itself. On our next slide, we also had other amazing artists as mentors, D'Angelo Rains, Mirvan Hurd, Salome Sug. When we go to our next slide. So the creation of the first Talking Walls. Finally, on October 3rd, and I smile because it was supposed to be in September, but of course we had the fires. There was a lot of smoke in the air. We couldn't be outside, if you all remember, so we had to postpone, but it was okay. We made it happen in October the 3rd. came together with the Black Student Union, with parents, with community members, other artists that just came to help. And we had a mural painting sessions with our artists guiding the students. We had a chalk the block activity. There's an art piece that went on the fence that you'll see in a little bit. It's called I Have a Dream. We had a spoken word session with the Angela Rains from Art Not Crime. And we just had wonderful, beautiful statements from students where they shared how it was so important to find a welcoming space right next to their school that gave a true sense of belonging. So it's not just something that was creating and it looks great, it's something that is a part of them. And we also had one of our board members with us that day and many other people from THPRD. On our next slide, I just want to provide a visual. When I first went there with Holly and Mark and we visited the park, that's how it looked like. And if we go to the next slide, this is how they look right now. It's amazing art. They are really talking walls. They're telling a story. Aside from all these wonderful pieces, we have on the next slide, the I Have a Dream art piece. This was also by Amara Marlouk, and it's an idea she had of bringing all this fist together with the dreams or art from different students and youth, and just tell the community that they also have a dream. On our next slide, we had sunset. It was wonderful, an amazing experience. But as we said, we had a second option. So we moved forward with Greenway Park. This is how the site looked. And on the next slide, we just want to share that we had in mind a harvest themed event. We wanted to invite 3 Native artists to participate. And again, we wanted to hold it in November, but due to many reasons, we had to change the date. Since it was going to be in November, the intent was to have a harvest time themed event and in celebration of the Native American Heritage Month. So we started conversations again with artists, with Color Outside the Lines, and youth. Color Outside the Lines connected with NAYA, the Native American Youth and Family Center, and with other groups such as Medicine Collective, just to bring us all together for this project. On our next slide. So just a little bit about these wonderful artists. Patrick Price, if you visited the site, it's very, you will recognize them. He presented Sunset Hummingbird. He's living in Eugene, but he's originally from Southeast Alaska. He's from the Tlingit tribe, and that is Patrick. On our next slide, we have Toma Villa. He presented his piece, Those Who Live Along the River. He's from the Yakama tribe, and he resides in Seattle. He's made several pieces in Portland, and now we're very honored that we have him here as well. Toma also participated in a wonderful storytelling session where he shares the story behind this piece of elk and sturgeon. If you haven't seen a video from the Oregonian, he tells the story on that piece. On our next slide, we have our third amazing artist, Rudy Redstone Serna. His ancestors are Huichol and Huachitle from Mexico, and his piece is very big, and it's a mosaic of many, many cultures. He has pieces that are Aztec, Mayan, Inca, Chinook, Inuit. So he brings us all together in a big, big piece. If we move to the next slide, we had many, many wonderful shared moments. Aside from the storytelling piece that Toma did with elk and sturgeon, we had a wonderful collaboration from Mariah Makalapua from Medicine Collective. What she was working on is the creation of truth sticks, and she worked with 2-3 students or youth in creating those for them. It was a very private moment in the middle of all this that was happening around us. It was also great to hear that youth came together. Many of them were from Naya and different programs, and they hadn't seen each other for the longest time. So since we opened up the space, they got to see each other again. So that was very meaningful. We also talked to a lot of families that live in the area. They were visiting or just walking by, and they were asking what that was. So they were very excited of having this art in their neighborhood. And every time that we went back to clean up, to pick something up, the artist stayed a few days longer to finish up all the details, and just people kept coming up and wanted to take pictures and asking the artist about what all that was about. So it has been a wonderful opportunity. And we can see in one of the pictures there, we see Everardo and Colton from Park Patrol. They went there to say hello as they do their rounds, and they ended up participating as well. People especially love that piece as well. And on the next slide, the next steps. Well, now that talking walls are complete, those two, we added, it's very interesting, the coverage that we were talking about at the beginning. It's UV protectant, but it's also graffiti deterrent. So if we do have graffiti as a form of vandalism, there's ways to take that off without doing anything to the painting itself. There is interpretive signage on the way telling the story of those talking walls for both Sunset and Greenway. And additional news would be Holly and Cindy, our grant writer, have submitted applications for a couple of grants because we would love to keep this talking walls going in the rest of the district. One of them is a research grant, so we're hoping we get access to that. And I think they're also going to do an upcoming opportunity with the Oregon Cultural Trust. And we would ideally want 3 talking walls per year. What happens if we don't get those funds? That we might find a way to make at least one happen every year. It's just a significant activity. And just to conclude, this has been an amazing team effort where the whole THPRD family really comes together, leadership, our board, events, design and development, safety services, etc. And I also want to share how this was made possible under the leadership and support and guidance of Holly and Doug, but also shared with staff and shared by the community. There's a great feeling of gratitude to THPRD and specifically to the board for supporting these efforts and bringing THPRD's values into action and in creating meaningful moments in spaces that will last. So that's where we are, and we're open for questions.
Ashley, if I could add one comment just real quick here, and that's simply to acknowledge the work that Lulu is doing here, and Holly, and you know, the outreach. My wife and I happened to be there, and when the 2 individuals, the 2 younger people, bumped into each other, and neither knew they were going to be there, and that relationship, you could see the joy of really gathering, of a known commonality and a friendship, and just the aspect of being able to intentionally participate together as well. It was really it was refreshing. It gave great hope for us as we move forward that this kind of work we're doing is what we need. It speaks into what Tia had commented about earlier. This is what we need to do for our society. We need to show the joy, the opportunity for the best of what we can be together.
Thank you, Doug. Let's go Heidi, then Tia.
Oh, so much to say. These 2 events were the highlight of the year serving on this board. And so Lulu and Holly and team, like, so much gratitude. Just beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And I get to drive by Greenway and see the mosaic every day, which is great. I would love and encourage you to share this with ORPA and RPA, Beaverton School District. Like really, I mean, this is such a unique opportunity that's really brought our community together and shows that partnership. And it would be wonderful to share, your work, the vision and the love that went into this and how that can, go into other communities as well. So excellent, excellent job. I can't even say enough. I'm just in love with it. So great job, Lulu.
I am here just to echo all of that. Lulu, amazing. Every time you're here, all we have is praise for you, you and your amazing team. And Holly, you guys just blow us away with all of your ideas. And it's just so heartwarming to create these opportunities that bring communities together, that showcases our diversity, that showcase different stories. And I think the best way of fighting injustice is education and helping people to realize the beauty of our differences, that it's not something to be scared of, but it's something that adds to the beauty of our world and our community, and that we can all each enjoy everybody's different backgrounds and really just get the best of everything is just what it's all about. And these beautiful talking walls that will continuously be created and constantly be done is just a monumental project that you guys came up with this year, and I'm so grateful for it. Thank you.
Holly and then Wendy.
Thanks, Ashley. I just wanted to comment, all the love and everything for this program and this concept. Heidi, to your point, Lulu and I collaborated on an NRPA session. I can't speak right now. Submission to speak on a topic, and the topic that we chose to do was how Park and Rec agencies can be a partner on social justice and racial justice reform. So we wanted to talk about a lot of the district work happening, how we were inspired for the concept of the message gardens and the talking walls because of what was happening, and thinking about Park and Rec's role in being an ally at these times and how we leverage these shared spaces to bring the community together. We also, in that session proposal, talked about the board's work and the district's work in supporting people experiencing homelessness. So we talked about our partnership of having a shelter go into the STIR Center while the center was closed. We talked about Beaverton Family Promise, that partnership, and the shared safe parking program. So lots of thoughts there about how we can use this to talk with our other colleagues in the community and around the country about how to be an ally, and we're still learning. And the other thing I want to say for, this, it's actually too emotional to talk about how meaningful this work is. But aside from all of that, I'm so heartfelt, amazed by Lulu, because the topic is hard, the project is amazing, but let's not forget how many times this had to be rescheduled and how many challenges we had to deal with. I think poor Lulu was in tears when Greenway got rescheduled. So, from an event planning perspective, the topic's amazing, but from an event planning perspective, our staff, top to bottom, have just been amazing. And, when Lulu would reach out to maintenance and say, we're going to need some extra help, when John Campbell's response is, can I bring my wife and can we volunteer? And to have staff say, can I bring my family members and we'll help you with setup and we'll help you with tear down. It's just amazing how this project not only brings the community together, but brings our staff together and really allows us to lead with our values. And can I share, Lulu, about Amara? Do you want to share about that Amara's? Yeah, share that story.
So Amara is the co-lead from the Black Student Union. She participated in Sunset. She's the brain behind the I Have a Dream installation. She is the one that did one of the pieces with Kira, and she's amazing, just an amazing person to have worked with. But as we worked with her, she shared that she has volunteered with THPRD. She worked during a summer with us. So she's very integrated with THPRD and has been using THPRD since she was little. And then for Greenway, she participated as a volunteer again, but more for the coordination and logistics, just supporting us. And then she recently applied for a position with the THPRD, and she got that position. So it's just lovely to see how we connect with the community. And we're talking about somebody that has grown up with THPRD and is participating in a very meaningful way. So yeah, we're very proud of that connection as well.
This is wonderful news. I have had some communication with some people that know Amara, and I'm so thrilled that she's joining our team. So that's awesome.
Wendy?
Well, I echo and do not need to repeat what my fellow board members have said. Kudos to all of you, Lulu, Holly, and the so many people who have worked on this, but I wanted to share one thing. I remember sometime back, Holly and I were looking at the outside wall of Conestoga, and she said, you know, we have so many blank walls. Can you imagine what we could do with them? Well, look what she's doing. And so I wanted to give kudos where that started. And it wasn't that long ago. So Holly, thank you, thank you. And I want to finalize the full circle when I was watching some of the kids painting at Greenway. When the little kids came in, their eyes got so big and they looked up and down the walls and they were fascinated. And then they got to participate. They got to pick up paintbrushes. So, you know, kudos all around, and look where we started looking at blank walls, and they aren't going to be blank for long. So thank you.
Thank you. Tia, did you have something else?
I did not.
Perfect. Lulu, Holly, team, everyone involved in these amazing projects. I love seeing our values come to life. That's all I'll say. Everyone has covered everything that we need to say about this topic. It's so amazing. And thank you for coming and sharing the journey with us. And thank you for everything you did, Lulu, to continue with the reschedule and make sure that these stories came to life in our district. So thank you. All right, our next agenda item is unfinished business. So we are going to interview 2 candidates for our budget committee. We are starting, we're just going alphabetical order. So we are going to start with Lee Lynn. So Lee, if you would like to turn on your camera, my colleagues and I will take turns asking the questions, and you'll have a chance to answer those and engage with us. All right. Okay, hi Lee. All right. You know, I assigned the order. I think, Wendy, are you first?
I am.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
You bet. Hi, Lee, and thank you so much for coming to our meeting. We appreciate you being here. My question for you, the first question is, why would you like to serve on the district's budget committee?
I'm passionate about serving my community. My family just moved to the area over 2 years ago, and the district's program has really helped us integrate quickly. And I like analyzing data, and I have the experience. So I think this is a good way for me to give back.
Thank you, Lee. I have the next question. I'm Ashley. It's nice to meet you. Thank you for being with us tonight. What do you believe is the role of the budget committee for the district?
I believe the budget committee's role is to provide public oversight of the budget preparation, make recommendations that are in the best interest of our community, and keep the public informed of the district's business and operations. It's making sure the financial resources are obtained and used effectively and efficiently to accomplish the district's goals and priorities.
Thank you.
Hi, Lee. I'm Tia. I have the next question. So What professional or volunteer experience do you have that would help you in your role as a budget committee member?
I have more than 15 years of experience in auditing, accounting, and financial analysis. I currently worked as internal auditors at BPA, conducting financial, operational, and compliance audits, and to help the agency improve its processes. Prior to joining BPA, I worked over 5 years as an inspection specialist at Public Company Accounting Oversight Board, the U.S. regulator of the public accounting firms. I conducted inspections to evaluate the audit quality and identify audit deficiencies, contributing to the mission of protecting investors and the integrity of the capital markets. I also worked over 7 years at multiple Big Four accounting firms, both in the US and overseas. I helped clients understand and address complex accounting issues, help evaluate the processes. I serve on the social committee at my previous employer, help budgeting, planning, and organizing office events. I also serve on the Graduate International Student Association, organizing events that will help international students adjust to living and studying in the US. I received a bachelor in accounting from Tsinghua University in Beijing and a master in accounting from Boston College. So I believe my professional experience and educational background will really help my role in the budget committee.
Thank you, Lee. And I have the last question? The last question for you. And I'm so glad you were able to join us tonight. And thank you for applying for this position. So the last question is, what do you believe is the most important financial issue of the district? And why do you believe it is important?
So first, I want to say, overall, the district's financials look really healthy. And the credit rating is solid, and the resource allocation approach seems very reasonable. Based on the limited review of available public information, I believe that the most important financial issue is financial and operational resiliency, especially during this pandemic. I noted that the program revenue has decreased by $13 million in 2021, causing the district to lay off temporary and permanent staff to cut a quarter of the personnel costs. And people is one of the most important assets of any organization, and replenishing that workforce is very costly and not a small task. So I also noted that the new budget is assuming a normal operation, which may or may not pan out. So that requires us to have a contingency plan to respond to the uncertainty ahead and to balance the short-term resource constraints and the long-term goals.
Thank you for that. Ashley?
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lee. We will next move forward with the interview process with our other candidate, Teresa Payne.
Hi, sorry.
Okay.
It's my first time on Microsoft Teams, so I'm not the best with the technology. Good evening, everyone. Everyone listening, my name is Teresa Payne.
Wonderful. Thank you for being with us. Yes, Teams is it's a different user interface for certain. So, Wendy.
Hi, Teresa. Welcome. Thank you for sitting in with us this evening. I have the first question for you. Why would you like to serve on the district's budget committee?
Great question, Wendy. You know, THPRD's core values are in equity, sustainability, and community action, and I feel like my personal values really embody that. And as a person who believes in being a part of the change that I want to see, I feel that being a part of the budget committee as it is going through another pivotal and really transitional year, fiscal year in 2021, 2022, that to be able to have the opportunity to provide fresh ideas and perspective is something that I really look forward to and hope to contribute to my community and kind of the best parts of the community being Parks and Rec.
Wonderful. Thank you, Teresa. And what do you believe is the role of the budget committee for the district?
Great question. Thank you, Ashley. The role of the budget committee, it's more than just creating concurrent resolutions for the allocation of funds. It's being a part of, the beginning of a project and understanding where the funds are going. Being a resident of Beaverton and having friends and family members who take advantage of Parks and Rec, when you have a facility that is closed down due to COVID and not having funds being able to come in due to lack of participation, but still having to maintain those properties, really seeing where those dollars go and being a person who will be a part of having a say in, how we spend funds. I think it's important to understand how we as budget committee members play a role in that, and being a part of the community, being able to have that core background. It plays a pivotal role, not just in, giving advice to board members, but also giving a personal touch and saying, hey, I know it may be a stretch, but this is really something the community needs to see, or having that insight that a specific program should be funded and that we can apply for more grants elsewhere to meet that gap in need, the financial need.
Thank you. Tia, you are unmuted.
Tia, you're muted.
Sorry, see, not good at Teams, and I do this every month. My third question is, what professional or volunteer experience do you have that would help you in your role as a budget committee member?
Great question, Tia. Thank you. Well, I am vice chair of the Diversity Advisory Board. I have participated in the Housing Technical Advisory Group that oversees housing for the city of Beaverton. So pretty informed about some of the things that THPRD does as far as the waivers, having conversations. I know that THPRD has had several sessions last year listening to Javier Mena. He also oversees the Housing Technical Advisory Group, so it's great to work with him on housing and how waivers help fund a lot of the projects for affordable housing units. Being a part of Home Plate Youth Services and how homeless youth often go to Parks and Recreations to have a place to meet and gather, a safe place just to make friends, to take a shower. Some of the housing insecure people use THPRD facilities to stay warm and clean throughout the year, and COVID has really made an impact for them. So I think just my well-roundedness as a fellow community member and seeing in all the different facets that THPRD touches lives, from housing and the waivers and the funds that are collected from that to the resource that THPRD facilities hold for people, and how THPRD is at the forefront of diversity, equity, and inclusion. All those different facets of our community are really embodied in one place, which is amazing. So to be a part of, or even considered for, since I'm not there yet, but to be considered for the opportunity of being on budget committee to help give a voice to the representative board and group that THPRD already has, and its cohort of folks that volunteer and work there, just to give my voice. So that is specifically some of my experience professionally. I am the United States Regional Coordinator at a manufacturing facility in Tualatin. So I have great communication experience and cross-functional experience working with people in different departments across industries. So when it comes to having conversations with people about money, sometimes giving people a high level is great, But you need to meet people where they're at and make stories about budgeting relatable. Not everyone has a master's degree in finance. And although that's a fantastic thing, when you're talking to people on a general level, it's great to be relatable. So to take a lot of the things and conversations that we're having on the budget committee and really share them openly and widely with community members to help them understand how THPRD is making a difference in our community.
Thank you.
Hi, Teresa. I'm Heidi. Thank you for joining us again tonight and for applying for this important position in the community. I have your last question for you. So what do you believe is the most important financial issue of the district, and why do you believe it is important?
Oh gosh. So many different things. If I can just touch on 4 key
no
ones.
wrong answer.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to give kudos. I and my fellow neighbors participated in some of the wonderful things that THPRD has put on. So the drive-in movie in the park is fantastic. Drive-in bingo, Rock the Park, the message gardens. I know some of my fellow members from the Diversity Advisory Board participated in that. In the way that through activities, THPRD has a way of bringing people together, at a time when, politically, especially last year during the height of the climate with the presidential election, so many parts of our, larger United States are being torn apart. George Floyd, at THPRD, and through its efforts of community engagement and involvement, continues to be at the forefront of bringing our community together. And that is only made possible with money. So being a part of the budget committee and really putting forth the time, energy, and effort to fund things that are important, and wanting to be a part of that and allowing people to be a part of the change that they want to see, which is an extremely beautiful thing. As conversations continue to be had on budget, taking into consideration some of the waivers. I know I have been trying to keep track of some of the meetings on waivers, long and drawn out, as you know very well. But a lot of the conversations, once again, where it takes someone of the community to communicate with the community about what is going on and discussing budget in terms that, everyone can understand, that people can get behind, and really just being relatable. So I feel like, as to your THPRD, it's a mouthful, especially when you're nervous, that THPRD continues to do great work. And I look forward to some of the initiatives that we're going to do in the future. And even if I don't get the opportunity, I will still continue to support THPRD and all of its works and continue to go to great stuff. And I'm excited to finally go swimming in a THPRD facility because I haven't gone in over a year. So thank you, Heidi, for that question.
Yeah, thank you, Teresa. Wonderful. And Ashley, we'll hand it back over to you. Teresa, thank you again for joining us.
Yes, thank you so much, Teresa. And you and I have talked about swimming before, so I know that you're missing that very much. And we look forward to more pools getting open. So thank you both so much for your time this evening, for taking time to apply for consideration, for interviewing with us tonight. We're blown away by both of you, by your passion for your community and your qualifications. And so thank you so much for your time this evening. At this time, our board has opportunity to just move on to a discussion about the 2 amazing candidates before us tonight, so we can make a decision about who will join our budget committee. So if any of my colleagues wanted to start the discussion, provide any feedback, our goal is to appoint a member tonight so we can get someone acclimated to our budget process by our next our next budget meeting that comes up in April. Heidi.
Thank you. Well, I'm thoroughly impressed. Both of these women have exceptional experience and resumes that come along with them, and their responses to each of the questions was very thoughtful, and I'm sad we can't have both of them. But I would like to see us put forth, well, I would recommend that we have Miss Lee Lynn appointed to the budget committee. I think that her experience, both with the BPA, her educational background, and the like, that really is sort of stands out and would be a great asset for us on the committee as a whole. So I'll leave it at that and let my peers jump in.
Go ahead, Tia.
Okay. This is so hard. I thought last time was hard and this is harder. Both great candidates, amazing. Besides these two candidates, I know we had an amazing amount of applicants who were also amazing. So I'm just so grateful for our community for stepping up. To just have this opportunity to choose is just very difficult. And I think both have great things to come. I love that Teresa has her different community volunteering backgrounds that give her a different scope of things within our community. I love that. I think on her application she mentions like she's would love to ask questions and push boundaries and those kinds of things, and those are the kinds of things that I think we also need. Lee, her experience is just amazing. Her knowledge so far of what's to come and everything like that. Her background also working with the immigrant community and everything is just wonderful. So it's a really, really hard decision because they both bring so much. I would, in the face of COVID and coming back and knowing budgeting and taking care of our employees and all of that kind of stuff and making sure that we are spending as efficiently and wisely, somebody who can comb through our budget with a fine-tooth comb, I think is needed. And I think Lee has that slight edge over Teresa, but it's very hard. I could go either way. So I'll let my other board members discuss what they feel like.
Wendy.
I agree. This is hard. We are so lucky to have both these lovely ladies willing to give their time and expertise to us. My thought was similar to Heidi's, and that is that I believe the federal experience that Lee has will stand us in good stead should Lee be on the board, because I'm sorry, on the budget committee, because one of our major partners and certainly some of our major funding and some of the major interesting things we have to jump through are federal. And so my thought would be that Lee, although she didn't necessarily mention it, may not realize what a benefit she offers in terms of her knowledge of the federal system. And so I don't, can we find some other position for Teresa? I don't want to lose Teresa. But I think for the budget committee, I believe that my vote will go to Lee because of her particular background and her particular knowledge of federal money. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing and for the discussion. We have two stellar candidates in front of us, and Lee's financial expertise and experience is undeniable. Teresa, when you talked about the community input and having the terminology, what we're dealing with in a public budget brought to the community in an understandable and approachable way, really stood out to me. I think it's very complex, and so to be able to talk about it with our constituents, with members of our community in a way that's not go look at this multi-100-page document and figure it out, right? I think that's super important in terms of transparency. And so my choice tonight would be for Teresa. I think we have a consensus in front of us tonight, and so I'm hoping there'll be a motion made as a next step.
This is Tia. I think I get the general consensus, so I'm going to move that the Board of Directors approve Resolution 2021-07, appointing Lee Lin to the Budget Committee with a term expiring on June 30th, 2022.
This is Heidi. I'll second.
Thank you. And Jessica, will you please take the vote?
Wendy Kroger,
Yes.
Heidi Edwards,
Yes.
Tia Ping,
Yes.
Ashley Hartmeyer-Prick.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Again, I want to thank both you, Teresa, and you, Lee, for joining us tonight, for putting your time into this process with us. Teresa, we every year we seem to have opportunities for budget committee, so we will keep you in mind in the future if it's something you are open to. And I just want to thank you again both for spending your evening with us on this meeting. Okay, with that, that is our final agenda item for the evening. So thank you all for your time. Doug, are we good?
We are good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. We are adjourned. We'll see you in April.